How's it going, YouTube? Welcome back to another video on the channel, and today we are looking at Cyberstorm Access. Should you buy it? What cards should you pick up from the set? Let's kick this off. If you want 5% off any single or sealed product, head over to tier0games.com and use code GALZO5 at checkout. So, Cyberstorm Access is coming out in about a month, and it's introducing more power creep, more powerful monsters. I think this is probably going to be the last set that we're going to see that before Duelist Nexus. I think this is kind of like wrapping up the Visas Starfrost lore, and we know that Visas and his friends have been ruining the TCG ever since Power of the Elements, so hopefully this will end here. Before we begin, make sure to leave a thumbs up on the video, subscribe if you are new as always. If you do want to support the channel, the best way is to go over to my website and pick up some Despian merch. This really helps grow the channel, and I do appreciate it if you do that. So let's start with probably the most impactful card that seems rather tame but is actually really strong, and of course I'm talking about Super Heavy Samurai, Prodigy, Wakashi, and of course his friend, the Super Heavy Samurai Bike. And I think these two alongside with the Scale 1 monster, bring out a really interesting and kind of broken strategy into the TCG. So the Wakashi, what it does is that it has a pendulum effect that allows you to special summon it and place another Super Heavy Samurai monster on your scale. And the Bike says that you can discard it, add one Super Heavy Samurai monster from your deck to your hand, and it's a level 2 tuner. Shocker. How could this be more broken? Just like level 2 tuners now with Excel Synchro Dragon is just like super inherently broken. And the Wakashi is so good because it's really hard to interact with. It has a pendulum effect, so you can't really interact with that. And it special summons itself from the pendulum zone and places another card in the pendulum zone. So basically, it's sort of like a Rite of Ramesir situation where it's a really strong starter, and you cannot even interact with it with any hand traps going second. And what this essentially does is allow you to climb up to a Synchro 8, summon back the Bike as a tuner, go into a Baron, while you have a set up of scales from 1 to 8. So essentially, Bestials and Sprite, and of course like things like Punk even, and a lot of other things can be played. Just spill your entire hand onto the board. This deck that's running this engine can end on a Baron, a Naturia Exterio, and a whole Sprite setup without a problem, and it's a 1-card combo. There's also a 1.5 card FTK from GGYGO's video. I'll link it down below as well. And I think even though it looks pretty innocent, I think it's going to be really impactful. Then we have a few notable synchro monsters, and the first one is actually a Bestial, the Bestial Dispatter level 10 Dark Dragon monster that requires a non-tuner dragon to summon. And first of all, it has a really strong attack stat of 3500 and also 3500 defense, which is really huge. You can target one Banished Light or Dark monster, special summon it to your field. Easy as that. When your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can target one banished card, shuffle it into the deck. If you were the owner of that card, you destroy the monster. If your opponent was, you negate the activated effect. So essentially, it's either a pop or a negate as a quick effect. It has a really huge stat line, and it's super versatile because it can do a lot of different things. Of course, in decks like Despia, but not only, you just summon Banished Light or Darks, which is really strong. Then we have the Chaos Angel, which is another Dark Synchro level 10 with 3500 attack. Again, just like another beast. And for the Synchro Summon of the monster, you can use either a light or a dark monster that you control that is not a tuner as a tuner. So essentially you can make this with anything. As long as it's light or dark, you don't even need to have any tuners in your deck. And it also gains additional effect based on the attributes that you use. So light monster, if you use a light monster to make it, your synchro monsters that are unaffected by your opponent's activated monster effects, which is huge, and dark, your monsters cannot be destroyed by battle, which is really big. On top of that, it has an additional effect of when it's special summon, you can target one card on the field and banish it. This is special summon, not synchro summon, so it's sort of like a Shrek in a synchro form. I think this card is really versatile. There's a lot of synchros now at play There's a lot of good level 10s, but adding Chaos Angel and the Bistro Dispatcher to the list of good synchro 10s with Baron and Chenying really ups the ante in terms of synchros. And the last synchro we have is actually a Despia monster, and it's Lulu Wallet. It's a level 12 light spellcaster synchro monster with a pretty modest attack stat at 25/25, which is of course mirroring Fleur-de-Lis stats from earlier sets, and it requires one level 4 tuner and one other non-tuner monster or more, of course. And if a card leaves the extra deck once per turn, so that means if a monster was summoned from the extra deck, or if a card leaves the extra deck for the effect of Mirror Jade, for example, your monsters gain 500 attack. Then you can negate the effects of one face-up card on the field, non-targeting. So that's pretty crazy. It also has a pretty interesting end phase effect where you can summon a light spellcaster whose attack is equal to his own defense. This is of course referring to Ecclesia, Cortesia, and Quem, which we're going to talk about now. And Quem is the new girl support for the branded, probably the final starlight of the set. Unfortunate to admit it. But Quem is another spellcaster level 4 light tuner with 15/15 attack, and this is probably not as strong as Cortesia, but it's also really good on its own way because it's always treated as a Dogmatica and Despia monster, which means two things. One, you can special summon it from the deck with things like Grand Guignol, which can finally summon a Dogmatica from the deck, but also you can summon it with Branded Opening, and you can search it with Despian Tragedy because it's always a Despia monster, which is huge. The first effect, if it's normal or special summon, you can send one Fallen of Albaz or one card that mentions it from your deck to the graveyard. So essentially, all the hand traps, all the monsters that relate to Fallen of Albaz, even Branded Fusion, it's sort of like an Albion on steroids. And when a card leaves the extra deck, you can target one Fallen of Albaz or one monster that mentions it, special summon it from the graveyard. So this is a really good starter and extender as well. You can interrupt your opponent's plays by summoning a Fallen of Albaz from the graveyard. You can actually summon a Mercurier to the field to use it as a negate. And of course, you can combo through your combo by summoning back a Cortesia that you sent off of Branded Fusion and use it on the field. So it essentially does a lot for the deck, and I'm really interested to see how that plays out. And of course, with the new spellcaster comes a new fusion monster that requires Fallen of Albaz and one light spellcaster as material, and that is Albion, the Incandescent Dragon, level 8 light, 3000 attack, which is good. I was expecting this to be somewhere over 25, but it's not. And this card is actually pretty insane. First of all, it cannot be used as fusion material, so you know it cannot be super polyed. Second, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects, which is very good. And during your opponent's turn, this will give you some flashbacks. You can target 2 monsters in any graveyard, special summon them, 1 to each field. It does have the drawback of not summoning from the banished, but again, this is a branded expulsion on legs that cannot be targeted or super polyed. I think this is going to be a pretty interesting approach for the deck. This cannot only lock your opponent with things like Gimmick Puppet, this can also interrupt, again, with things like Fallen of Albaz from the graveyard, summoning it, using it as a material for fusion summoning with an opponent's monster. Unfortunately, it has a pretty disappointing graveyard effect that we're not going to touch on this video, but essentially it can just special summon itself, but it's really hard to pull off. Wait, only 32% of you are subscribed? Come on guys, leave a thumbs up on the video if you're enjoying this and subscribe to support the channel. Next up we have a very interesting spell that is already seeing some play in the OCG, which is Time Rending Morganite. It's a normal spell that says apply these effects for the rest of the duel. You cannot activate monster effects in the hand, draw 2 cards in your normal draw phase, and you can conduct up to 2 normal summons or sets each turn and not just 1. It also has a banish effect that basically says your opponent cannot activate monster effects when you normal summon a monster. But the thing is, this locks you for the rest of the duel, but what this can actually do is, and what it's actually doing in the OCG right now, is boost up a lot of stun strategies that don't need monster effects in the hand, for example, and just let you conduct 2 normals, and of course, drawing 2 cards every draw phase. I don't really know what the effect is going to be like in the TCG, but it's a very interesting thing at that. And then we have Pearly Lily, which is sort of like the last, the final hammer in the coffin, or the nail in the coffin, if you want to call that, of Pearlies. It's the final piece of support that actually brings the deck really, really close together, and it's what allows it to be actually competitive right now in the OCG. So of course, first of all, it's a searcher. You can add one Pearly card from your deck to your hand, except a quick play. So it searches for the field spell, the continuous spell, and of course it can search for the other Pearly monster, Pearly. And it's also a one card Xyz, because you can target a Pearly quick play in your graveyard and special summon one Xyz using that card and Pearly Lily. So essentially, it's sort of like a Exosister Martha situation, or of course, like, you can compare this to Zodiac, but this makes the deck a lot more consistent and powerful, just to make sure you go up to that insane towers of an Xyz and just win the game by that. We also have the last maybe archetype of Visas and Friends, which is Mana Dome, and of course this is going to be a little bit broken as well, similar to what we saw with Tearlaments and Kastura. This is actually not doing great in the OCG right now. It's almost invisible, but this archetype relies on Synchro Summoning, of course, which is the third archetype for this Visas lore, and destroying cards. It utilizes Visas much more than Tearlaments and Kastura do. So it relies on popping cards and monsters on your field, gaining advantage from that. It of course has a series of level 2 tuners. I cannot stand level 2s anymore, but this is basically what it does, just spam out monsters. And it also uses a pretty interesting interaction with Elemental Hero Prisma to make its name Visa Starfrost, to actually start your combo from there. But it also has a very strong boss monster called Vicious Stroud, which I'm guessing probably is going to be like a very top tier secret rare in the set. And what's super interesting about this, aside that it needs Visa Starfrost and one monster with 1500 attack and 2100 defense, which is all the hearts, the Reich heart, the Rhino heart, and now the Rheum heart, it can be special summoned from the extra deck by banishing the materials from the graveyard, and that is not once per turn. When it's special summoned, you can target one card on the field, destroy it, and if you do, this card gains attack. It's already 3000, so it's pretty big. This is very interesting, combined with things like Cross Sheep to combo and gain advantage from fusion summoning, and this is going to be a very strong card. Hopefully we're going to see Mana Dome do a little bit better over in the TCG. And then we have a few notable things. We have the Nimerelia, which is getting a first wave of support, also has another wave of support coming in Duelist Nexus. Of course, we have the Firewall Dragon, which is the main theme of the set. Cyberstorm access, it's all about Cybers cards. I don't really know that it's going to do a lot, but again, for those Link Vrains fans, I suppose this is going to be a little bit interesting. Then Teller Knights, this was the first reveal that we got off of Cyberstorm Access, more Teller Knight cards, and this was actually relevant for a little while when the set actually came out in the OCG. And lastly, we also have one Virtual World card, Tiger Hoo Hoo. It's really unfortunate that this card really sucks that much, because I really would have wanted to see some more substantial Virtual World support, because it's such a cool deck that I think Konami kind of missed on with like letting it die really quickly. So, are you buying Cyberstorm Access? If so, what cards are you most excited for? Leave it down in the comments below. Don't forget to join as a member if you want to get access to our members-only Discord server. You can join the Discord server either way. It's free. And of course, if you do want to support the channel, buying my merch is the best way to do that. Link to the shop is in the description below. Leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.